Go to work. Welcome back. We are in Junior English. Our ambition today is to finish our conversations on the Declaration of Independence. Yesterday we worked through the first paragraph / sentence of that thing. Let's review just a couple of observations for your notes, just to make sure we're all on board. Begin at 2B with this set of notes. We're talking about writing persuasion. When we write to persuade, we're not writing to change someone's mind, but rather to challenge an opinion. Right? Because here's the deal, and I don't know if I said this yesterday, but let's make sure we say it now. When you write persuasion, you have an issue. Now, this could never happen, but just imagine for a moment, I'm having a conversation with Miss Cottrell, and all of a sudden I say something that just torques her right off. And she says, Mr. McGee, you are a jerk. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And she gets up and she's walking down the hall. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. She thinks I said something I didn't say. And I go walking down. I run after her down the hall. I'm like, Miss Cottrell, I didn't say. And she goes, I heard you say it. And I'm like, no. You think that's what I said, but this is what I actually said. And she goes, oh, you didn't say this other thing? And I go, no, that's not what I said. And she goes, oh, okay. See, we can do that when we communicate. But here's the deal. If Mr. McGee writes something that Miss Cottrell starts reading, and all of a sudden she doesn't like it anymore, and she sets the paper down, until somebody can invent paper that goes like this. Hey, pick me back up and keep reading. Right? Until somebody invents paper like that.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. Let's make this observation. Once the reader stops reading, persuasive writing is done. It's over. What I just said, by the way, is crucial. The rhetorical goal of persuasive writing is to keep the reader reading. To help us do that as writers, two important things. We mentioned them yesterday, I'm just reviewing. One, consideration of the historical precedent. That means we always think about what other people have said as we're writing. Said and done. Notice, for example, what we call this when we're writing our papers. What do we call that? When we're writing our papers and we have to have a works cited page, what do we call that when we consider the historical precedent? What's been said, for example, about McCarthyism outside of our textbook, what do we call that? What kind of validation? External validation. That's another word for the consideration of the historical precedent. External validation. When we think about what other people have to say. The second thing that we do is what we call conceding a point. Why? Because we always assume, when we're writing to persuade, we always assume the acrimonious audience. What does that mean? We always assume the acrimonious audience. Do we assume our audience is going to agree or disagree with us? Disagree. Acrimonious means disagreement. We always assume our audience isn't going to agree with us. So we're going to say something, that's what conceding a point is. We're going to say something that the acrimonious audience will agree with. Let me give you an example. Many years ago, I used to give this assignment to my juniors. They hated my guts for it. I would say this. You have to write on the following thesis. War is good. But your audience that you're writing for are a bunch of peace activists down in Nevada chained to a chain link fence outside of a nuclear test site. That's the audience you have to write to, and your thesis is war is good. Ready, go. They used to hate this assignment. Why? Because do peace activists want to hear war is good as a thesis? No. And they would often say, but this is impossible. And I would say, how about this? Let's begin our essay by saying it this way. War is terrible. Lots of people die. Right? Economies are destroyed. Families are ruined. War is terrible. However, sometimes war is necessary. Now notice what I did. Conceded a point, didn't I? That audience, that acrimonious audience is going to say, yeah, you're right, war is terrible. You're right, it does destroy families and ruin economies. However, notice, I use the word however, not but, same thing, right? However, sometimes war is necessary. Notice what I've done. I allow for the acrimonious audience to agree with something I say so that I can keep the acrimonious audience reading. That's the challenge. Let's point out. The single best example of persuasive writing I can give to you is actually the Declaration of Independence. Let's remind ourselves of a couple of things. Who is the audience that Jefferson is writing to in this essay? Who is Jefferson, let me ask it another way. Who is Jefferson most concerned about reaching in his audience, in his essay writing? Obviously he's writing to the British. What is he telling the British?
They need to...
We're done. Remember our example from yesterday, telling your parents, you're done. We're done. Right? But there's a second audience, Mr. Karn, that maybe Jefferson is trying to reach.
The Spanish Wall.
Why would he be so interested in the guys to the north and the guys to the south? You got it. He obviously is concerned about others like the French and the Spaniards, because what he wants to do is he wants to prove we have no choice. When in the course of human events it becomes... By the way, you're going to have to memorize this by next Friday, which is why I continue to kind of repeat it. Notice yesterday, who was I working with? Mortimer? So I was having Mortimer read that over and over again. After a while, if you hear it read over and over again, you start to memorize it. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary that one peoples dissolve the political bands that have connected them to another and assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature's God entitled them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind. What is that word? You should be looking at it. You ought to have that handout right now out in front of you. Let's go, guys. Come on, wake up. We're working. A decent respect to the opinions of what? Requires that they should what? That's why we call it the Declaration of Independence. Declare the causes which have what? What's that word? You might even want to circle that word. Impel. We do not have a choice. That is foundational to understanding this. Hello? Watch me. It is not that Jefferson is saying this, yay, I get to throw the British out of the colonies. No. That's not it. That's not it. The tone of this essay is more like this. We really don't want to do this. Why do you think that we really don't want to do this? Well, if you were to try to throw your folks out of their own house, what do you know is coming ultimately? Yeah, you know it's coming. Ultimately, they ain't going to go quietly. Ultimately, it's going to be some friction. Do you think Jefferson and the guys who signed the Declaration of Independence knew that? We know that they knew that by virtue of the final lines of the essay. When they even say, we're going to risk our very lives and our fortunes, they knew. They knew. Every one of the guys who signed the Declaration of Independence, this essay, started out really rich, ended up completely broke. Every one of them. They all lost their fortunes. Every one of them. That is the legacy that you derive, both as an American and as a student of this document. But we're now ready to move on to the second paragraph and to the arguments that will be made there. And I first want to point out, in literature, we have this thing called an allusion. A-L-L-U-S-I-O-N. Now, this is not what magicians do. Magicians create illusions. That's things you think you see, but you really don't. This is A-L-L we're talking about. What is a literary allusion? It is a reference to another literary text. Write it down. That's big at 2B. A reference to another literary text. Now, Jefferson will make an allusion here by referencing a very famous English philosopher. His name is John Locke, L-O-C-K-E. Locke, 100 years before 1776, had already made a very similar argument that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Jefferson will actually quote one of the English's own philosophers to make the argument that will now be made in this essay. Well, what is that argument? There are things that everyone knows and everyone accepts to be true. What are those things? Let's look at them now. We might want to put them in our notes and try and put them in our own words. We hold these truths to be, it gets dark and not obvious, self-evident. That, let's take a look at them. Notice this is a series of parenthetical clauses that begin with the word that. You can see that? By the way, that will help you to memorize it. That all men are created equal. Well, now let's talk about this one for a moment. Well, first of all, look at the word all. All men are created equal? What's ironic about that, given what Jefferson owned?
Slaves.
He did own slaves. And yet he wrote all men. Wait a minute. Let's look at the word men. Maybe put a square around that word. Men? Does that mean women? Well, let's point out for Jefferson, he didn't mean all men, did he? Because obviously he didn't think his slaves had the right to vote. And likewise, he didn't mean women either, did he? He meant men, but he didn't even mean all men. What did he really mean? All white, land-owning men. Men who owned land. Property. You had to have property to be eligible to vote, in Jefferson's mind. Wait a minute. Look at that next verb. See how we're reading this closely? Look at that next verb. Created. Created. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. What does created mean? Uh-oh. Are you ready for this? A few years ago, there was a huge debate at Worland High School about the science department and poor Miss Barnes. She was being attacked. The argument was whether she was allowed to teach evolution in her classroom or creationism in her classroom. I was asked about this. And I said, well, the only thing I would say is, boy, oh boy, I hope Miss Barnes doesn't have to teach the Declaration of Independence in her classroom. What's the irony of why I would say that? Look at what you just wrote down. We hold these two truths to be self-evident. All men are, it's right there in the document. Whoops. Miss Barnes, would we have to fire Miss Barnes for teaching the Declaration of Independence in her classroom? You can kind of see the irony of the question, right? This is America's most sacred document. Jefferson believed that rights are derived from divinity. Take a look at the line again. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What does the word equal mean? Does equal mean same? Because see, right now, we could go out there on that track, and we could all get ready and, on your mark, get set, go, and run, and we all aren't going to run the same speed. We're not all the same. We don't look the same. We don't have the same amount of speed. Some of us can run faster backwards than forwards. Is that right?
I've never seen it, but
Whoa, he's never seen it. Some of us are slow. Then we hit balls off of tees and things like that, you see. Some of us are fast, you see. And some of us can just run forever. Is that right? What does it mean to be equal? What's this mean? Jot down what you think this means. Braxton, what does it mean when Jefferson said we hold these truths to be self-evident, all men are created equal? What does that even mean? Go ahead, Mr. Carr.
To be entirely honest, this isn't exactly what he was getting at, but what I kind of get out of it is, to me, everyone is equal. Like, not everyone's the same speed, not everyone is the same everything. But if you compare every quality that each person has, somehow it seems to always balance out.
Let's say it this way, because Mr. Karn is taking us there. We are all humans equal under the law. That's what Jefferson means. All of us are created equal under the law. Why? Because we all have rights. Rights.
We all have the same rights.
We all have the same rights. Let's take a look at it. Look how he says it. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator. What does endowed mean here? What does that word mean? That's kind of a strange word. We don't use that word very much today. If I endow you with something, what does that mean? I give it to you. I give it to you. You get to keep it. It's yours. And are endowed by who? Look at what it says. Uh-oh, sorry, Miss Barnes. Look what it says. What's it say? Endowed by their Creator with certain... Uh-oh, that's a strange word. Let's practice saying it out loud since we have to memorize this text. How do we say that word? Unalienable. What does that word mean? What does that word mean? Unalienable means what? Cannot be taken away. You got it. Cannot be taken away rights. Now, wait a minute. Look what Jefferson says. It gets dark at night obvious. Everybody knows that all humans are created equal and have certain unalienable, cannot be taken away rights. That among these are, these aren't all the rights, right? They would have to create a Bill of Rights to make sure that they got all the rights. But the big three. What are the big three rights for Jefferson? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Let's take each one in order real quickly. What does he mean by life? You have the right to life. What does that mean? The right to live. The right to live. Somebody can't take your life away from you. You can be what you want in your life. What does then liberty mean? Let's jot that one down. Put it in your own words there. Can I do anything I want? Do I have the right to do anything I want?
No.
You actually do. Jefferson will say, you have the right to do whatever you want to do, but you also have the right to be punished if it is something that offends other people's rights. See how that works?
Yes.
You can take another person's life, but you also will be punished for taking another person's life. That's what we mean by equality under the law. All the laws, same for everybody, Jefferson will say. Wait a minute, what is that third one about happiness? Does he say that we have the right to happiness? He doesn't say that. Look at the language. What does he say?
We have the right to
Pursue happiness. Of course, there's a famous movie Will Smith made about this, The Pursuit of Happiness, right? It is a right. Wow, don't you find this interesting? That in our most sacred document, a really, really smart cat will use the word happiness twice. Twice in the opening lines of the Declaration of Independence. We have the right to pursue happiness. What does that mean to you? Write down in your own words what that means for you. To be happy, to pursue happiness. How will you know when you're happy? And what does it mean to pursue happiness? To do what you have to do to be happy. Is that the same for everyone? No. See, for some of us, Ozzy will say, for some of us that means money. For some of us that means food. For some of us that means family. For some of us, see, it means different things for different people. Hello. Can we punt this out though? Hello, can we punt this out? What made you happy in 5th grade is not the same always as what makes you happy in your junior year. Do you think it's possible that in 10 years, what makes you happy in 10 years might be different from now? So you go, yeah, probably. Some things will maybe be the same. Other things maybe will be different. Our views of happiness change as we get older, right? But Jefferson says we have the right to pursue what makes us happy. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Whoa, look at the next thing. What is Jeffersonian views of government? Now we're ready for some notes. This is huge. Jeffersonian views of government. Some Americans will say, I hate the government. Jefferson would not understand that concept at all. Why not? Because for Jefferson, you are the government. That's the Jeffersonian view of government. We'll come back and talk some more. Thank you.